Coach, just speaking to the former players out there, I mean, it was a moment that you all knew was coming in the inevitable, but they were struggling dealing with the finality of it. Is that where you are as well?
Very much so. I think several years, 6, 7, 8, you knew it was coming. Tried to be prepared for it. Still at 11, 19 last night, I was not prepared. Haven't been prepared all day, and probably won't be for a while. But as I said, it's just so sad because for me personally, I've really missed him the last few years also. But he was my mentor. He gave me a chance. The things that I've been able to do, I've been directly responsible, or excuse me, or the direct responsibility of my players. But if you could choose someone else, it would be Coach Smith. He gave me just such a wonderful opportunity and trusted me, taught me, shared his knowledge. That's the best that you can do for anyone. And yet it's been an incredibly tough time period the last few years for his family, and you're talking about the guy that has so much pride, probably more pride than any person I've ever known in my life. So it is a blessing in some ways, but it's also really, really hard.
Andrew?
Is there an image or a memory that you kind of played a lot in your mind since you found out last night that you hadn't thought about for some time?
You know, it was strange, and the answer to that question is no, but it was strange because Coach Smith has a legacy that touched basketball and will be around forever. You know, the little things like huddling at the free throw line, changing defenses, guys clapping when guys come off the bench, all those kind of things. But one of the ones that I've always admired the most was pointing at the guy that made the pass and thanking the passer. And Hubert and I still do it almost on every possession as a coaching staff. But last night, when we came back, we had watched the first half, part of the first half of the game coming from the airport here, and it shows Bryce rebound, dunk, follow. And the camera focuses on Bryce, and he's going back down the court and points. And I think it was Marcus. He said, Bryce never had a player point at a guy for missing a shot so he could dunk it. You know, that's new, and Coach Smith always wanted you to point at the guy that passed you the ball, but you were thanking Marcus for doing such a bad job shooting the ball that you were able to get to follow dunk. And that was, at that time, I did not know what was coming just a couple hours later. And that's, people will be doing things that they have no idea came from Dean Smith, but they'll be doing it because it's been passed down from coaches to coaches, players to players.
Roy, at what point, I mean, you come here as a young man, at what point do you start to get a sense of Dean and his social record and what he did for civil rights and for all those things, all those causes that he would take on because of who he was?
You know, look, it's strange because I decided I wanted to be a coach the summer after my 9th grade year in high school. And been very lucky because so many people have changed their mind 100 times before they finally find exactly what they want. Some never do. And I did that because of my high school coach. And he was the first person to give me confidence and made me feel like I could be somebody, made me feel like I could do some productive things. It was really the reason I went to college. I was the first Williams to ever go to college, first of my generation. And yet I would be in U.S. history class as an 11th grader 2 years later, and it was coached by Coach Baldwin. And he would talk about Coach Smith and what a great coach he thought he was. And so it was my junior in high school before I ever even thought about going to college. It was just not something that was talked about. It just wasn't. And so I was such a great player. I remember exactly the number of scholarship offers that I had. You know, so I turned down a few of those and told Coach Baldwin I wanted to go to Carolina. He had gone here, and I just heard so many great things. And he said, well, that'd be good for you because you'll be able to learn some things from Coach Smith. And at that point, the social initiative that he had done was not talked about. And then my freshman year here, I played on the freshman team for Coach Guthridge, and used to hang around and watch the practices, and I became just more interested in the man. And started reading all the articles and stories, and, and that was right in the middle of his 3 straight Final Four runs, 67, 68, 69, because the fall of 68 is when I got here, and that really stood out to me because I didn't want to be just a coach that cared about points and rebounds. And during that time period also was we had the cafeteria workers strike. There were some things going on. We had Kent State going on, and so it was a time period of demonstration, a time period of unrest around college campuses. And so that also put what Coach Smith had done up a little more importantly to my mind. And so it was really after I got here as a freshman that I really started seeing all those things. I hope that wasn't too long an answer, but I think I got there.
Andrew?
Boy, people talk about the Carolina family. How do you think Coach Smith just developed that? What does that phrase mean to you?
The Carolina family, it means it is a family. And it's so funny because all of our guys, when I was an assistant here, would come back and talk about how the other guys in the NBA would make fun of that. And we used to just say it was just jealousy, because they wanted to be part of that family as well. You guys have heard me say many times that I think Coach Smith was the best there's ever been on the court, getting people to make sacrifices towards a common goal, and truly coaching to make people better and help them reach their own individual dreams. But at the same time, he was better off the court. He cared more about people than wins and losses or records or anything. I've really tried, golly bum. I've really tried very hard to make sure it's not just about points and rebounds with me. And I know I don't even come close to the standard that Coach Smith set in caring about your players and coaches. And I told him one time I thought he was loyal to a fault, and he said that I shouldn't use those same 2 words in the same sentence, or those 2 words in the same sentence. And that was truly the man. He did more things for people without them knowing about it. And it was, again, I try to do some things, and man, I'm not even in the same, I can't even say league, I'm not even in the same stratosphere. And I called him the night before I went to Kansas for the interview. And I said, Coach, are you sure you want to do this? This is your school. You're screwing them up. You're trying to tell them I can do the job. Are you sure you want to do this to your school? And it's in the top 5 if I've ever heard him raise his voice to me. I mean, he was really mad. He said, you can do this job, and you're going to be the best. And things that he said to me in that phone call were pretty doggone important.
Roy, in the earlier days when you were burning the midnight oil and being sleep deprived and driving all around selling calendars and stuff, did he have any advice for you then, like, hey, slow it down a little bit, or?
He knew that I like to eat. He was being realistic about the thing. Part of it was just the rules. I mean, that was Coach, and he said this is going to be hard. $2,700, $2,700 for the whole year. I said, Coach, I'll be fine. He said, you're not worried about it. I said, Coach, I'll be fine. And I really did think. And we drove into Chapel Hill. Coach Guthers met us at Glen Lennox Apartments, and Wanda had to go over to the Chapel Hill public school system that afternoon, and they hired her that afternoon. She started work the next morning. And Coach said, well, that makes it a little bit easier. She said, but I said, Coach, I'm going to be fine. And, the things that driving 504 miles every Sunday and getting back in time for the varsity practice and then the JV practice, he'd say, why don't you, give him another day off? I said, because we need to get better. And it was something that I think he really appreciated that outlook about it. And I told him, I said, don't you worry about me, I'm going to be fine. But he was concerned, and years later he would always say, he said, I could have done more things for you. He lived in a very small apartment, a little bit bigger apartment, a very small house, and those kind of things for about 7 years. And I said, Coach, I was fine. And it was part of my background that I'm very proud of, and I think he understood that too. But he wanted me to be careful. He wouldn't say, "Did you get any sleep?" You know, because I was driving 504 miles, as I said, every Sunday morning. But it was easy. It's what you do. It wasn't a big deal.
Coach, every player that's talked about him talks about the unconditional care he's given them. Every player felt cared for. I'm curious, how did you know when you had made him proud?
You know, that's it's almost the way I've tried to live my life. Everything I've done as a basketball coach. That's the thought process. I want to make Coach Smith proud. When I came back here 12 years ago, there were some problems, and I told him one night, I said, I really do want to do this the right way. I want you to be proud of what I'm doing. He said, I'm already proud. But that's last night. That was still driving, and he'll do it the rest of the time that I'm a coach. But he did. He cared about his players, cared about his people, and I still miss his first several years after every game having the message on the phone. And still miss the little notes that he'd leave on the desk after games. And loved having him around and loved having him that involved. And it would have been a blessing for me if he were still involved the last year and a half or so. Haven't been the easiest in the world. And it would have been a blessing for me to have had him around during this time period too.
Take a few more back left here,
Roy,
Brett.
Yep.
what does it mean to you that the conversation today barely touches the win total and it all seems to be about him as a person? What does that mean to you?
It means he did it. He was successful. Sitting at the cafeteria counter was more important than wins and losses. Having Michael Jordan say he was his second father, that's more important. And it was more important to Coach Smith. It means he won. He was a success because that was more important to him. He used to say, you know, if we would just play well, I can handle the losing if we play well. I said, come on, Coach, we need to win too. You know, I want to do that. I'd rather win and play poorly. But he was a much greater man than me. And his whole thing was to do the best you can do, the absolute best that you can do. Don't leave anything, any stone unturned. Do the absolute best you can do, and then live with it. And you know, so it's. I've never had it put to me like that, but that's a pretty nice way. If you think about one thing, if somebody mentions Coach Smith's name, there's a big smile that comes to me. But even more importantly, just respect for the man. That's a pretty neat deal. And he's gonna, you know, I said to some of my buddies that as sad as I am, I also feel very blessed because he was such a great influence on me. I can't imagine anyone being a better influence than Coach Smith was. I just cannot imagine it. So even in times like this when you're really sad, and I've been sad the last few years not having him in the same shape and form that I'd had before, you got to feel very blessed, you know. And I got a text from Kenny Smith, and he said almost the same exact thing, is that we're so fortunate we were blessed because he was a great part of our lives. And he still will be. I mean, you know, he had some weird stuff. I mean, if you're standing on the first tee, you know, everybody wants to hit a mulligan. He would always say, if you hit the mulligan, you got to play the second one. You don't get to choose. So we call it the Dean Smith rule. We still do. You're on the green. He wanted everybody to play by the rules. You know, and we're a bunch of old guys, and I wasn't as old as he was. But he didn't want the stuff. If you play golf, it's good if it's in the leather. That wasn't Coach Smith. It was good if it was in the little leather, if it was in the grip. And we still do that to this day. Till I die. A lot of the things that I do will be from him. That's a pretty good legacy. It really is. So we'll still talk about him on the golf course. We'll still talk about getting mad at somebody just not dropping the ball in the right area, doing it the right way. And everybody would just laugh and laugh and laugh, but they'd go ahead and do it, the way he said. He got mad at me because I got it, one little tournament deal we're doing, where I got him and Coach Guthers to play from the senior tees. And he didn't want to play there. But Coach Guthers did, so he's mad at me. You know, that kind of thing. So just the times that we were partners on the golf course, and he had a great deal of respect and love for Bob Knight. And 2 different times, Coach Smith and I had matches against Coach Knight. And Coach Knight, other than Coach Smith, and probably the biggest influence on me as well, Coach Smith, and then Coach Knight, Coach Thompson. But we beat Coach Knight both times, and Coach Smith, you'd have thought he was as happy then as he was in New Orleans. Okay, and so it's I'll remember that competitiveness. Because he taught me one other thing. Everybody says that boy's one of the most competitive guys they've ever been around. But he taught me to be competitive about the right things, and I'll never forget that either. Anybody else?
Do you remember
Yeah.
when he was stepping away in '97, some of those conversations, and obviously Bill got that '98 team that was pretty loaded. Just, do you remember anything about that? Anything strike you about timing of it or anything?
He had told me, you know, that when he left, he wanted to make sure the team that he left was really good. You know, he wanted to make sure that the program was where he wouldn't have, he'd not be blamed, he wouldn't blame himself for not leaving something there that everybody who took the spot could be successful. And, you know, we'd had some conversations that spring, summer, fall. I just kept hoping that he would change his mind. But that was Coach Smith. He was not going to leave because there was a problem. He was going to leave because he thought it was the time to leave, and he wanted to make sure that the program was in good hands with Coach Guthridge, and there would be some very good players there, that the Tar Heel program would still be where it was.
Coach, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for coming on short notice. Appreciate it.